The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Melissa Lee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take the first call from the government benches opposing this bill by the list member from the New Zealand First, Tracy Martin. And I'd like to give her a piece of advice, first of all, to actually maybe say that she should have protested, perhaps, that she wasn't going to take being voted down from her deputy's role. She should have stood up. But I'm not so sure if that was actually heard in her caucus. But, sir, this is a bill that would effectively wreck and ruin all of the government's amazing efforts to develop public-private partnerships in Auckland and other parts of the country that are vital to the government's business growth agenda to support hard-working families and develop a strong economy and for our nation, sir. Sir, this bill, the New Zealand International Convention Centre Act 2013 Repeal Bill, is nothing more than an attempt by the member for New Zealand First on that side of the House to put a stopper.
Order. Just ask the member to. Now, I know at the beginning of the member's speech she did invite some response, and she got that response. I think now we will have a bit more decorum and a slightly better tone of interjection. Thank you, Mr. Mark. Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, this bill is nothing more than an attempt by the member for New Zealand First on that side of the House to put a stopper on the excellence that will come out of understanding new enterprise, new opportunity, and the growth of modern facility that can cater to international conferences, sir, without the stress currently on the wider hospitality and event management system. I would like to quote my colleague, Honourable Bill English, back in the original Act when it was actually read in 2013, sir, when he actually said, and I quote, "This is a bill that will provide jobs and better incomes for New Zealanders." And that is a fantastic thing, providing jobs for New Zealanders. Paraphrasing my colleague, sir, we know that there are at least 1,000 people employed in the construction process. The convention centre, when open, will employ 800 people, servicing of all those who go there when it is up and running, sir. This international convention centre that the national government has worked with Sky City will be a great opportunity. Quite simply, the New Zealand International Convention Centre will cater to nearly 3,500 international conference delegates at any one time. And if members in this House have actually been overseas to an international conference where there are thousands of delegates who are actually catered to and actually coming back to New Zealand and thinking we don't actually have one of those, we do actually feel a little bit envious, and this is going some way to addressing that need that this country actually has. It is being built with a state-of-the-art design, state-of-the-art internal facilities for a cost by a private provider who is able to fund the project through government support in a non-monetary fashion. This is the best sort of deal, Mr. Speaker. This is the sort of contract we should see more of. The government's not actually spending a cent on this. Mr. Speaker, this convention centre will increase GDP, a great result for a $0 investment by the government, and it will increase GDP by $49 million. And when we talk about the convention centre, we're talking jobs, we're talking growth, we're talking about revitalisation of the city rail link that I know that there are some members in this House actually often talk about, public transport. We're talking about our business growth agenda, the plan to get a strong economic growth program in place that even the Labour Party cannot possibly fault, sir. To repeal the bill is to shout aloud that we do not want those visitors from overseas to New Zealand, that we do not want stable enterprise, we do not want those businesses willing to take the risk in coming to the most remote OECD nation to do business and trade. We're basically turning away people who are actually wanting to come to New Zealand to spend money in New Zealand, sir. Mr. Speaker, this bill talks about protecting New Zealanders from financial liability. And I'm a little bit baffled as to what liability this bill is actually talking about, as under the current deal, we have actually none. The members' bill, however, creates a huge liability and will hurl our government into a debt through legal negotiations, breach of contracts, and generally bad faith, actually, on behalf of Parliament. The government, as a taxpayer's representative at large, would be liable, and all of New Zealand would lose on that value that the Convention Centre would offer by trading the non-monetary concessions that were negotiated in favour of Crown liability for the full debt, sir. Sir, we are managing the economy. We do not need $400 million debt as much as that member on that site might actually want. This agreement will put New Zealand on the map as a world-class destination to hold conferences. And at the moment, we don't have one as such. Our capacity to host business tourism, let's actually get New Zealand talking on the world stage in all fields. We need to get commercial and societal business into New Zealand, and this will create a means to do so, sir. We're building a competitive economy. We're getting growth. Over 150,000 jobs under the national government. This project is just one part of that agenda, but it, like all parts, is important to the growth of the economy. So I know members have actually sort of pointed out that we are talking about a serious issue here, sir. We're talking about problem gamblers too. There are problem gamblers in our community. We do know that, and this government has asked Sky City to make a commitment to the people of New Zealand to actually ensure that they are addressing and implementing the recommendations that we have requested here in this House to ensure that those who are problem gamblers can get the help that they need without strife or further concern, sir. Gambling is a nationwide concern. It's an issue that many people are concerned about, particularly in the ethnic communities, because there are quite a few ethnic community people who are in fact going to the casinos and have actually been identified as problem gamblers, sir. And one of the reasons why people actually become gamblers and get addicted to gambling is often they find that in the casinos they are treated like part of the community when they're on the outside perhaps feel like an outcast, a feeling not helped by the opposition's lack of charity and kindness to ethnic communities like the Labour Party did in recent days, sir. This government has ensured that to deter problem gambling and money laundering, Sky City, as a part of its responsibility to the people of New Zealand, take practical steps, sir, to address issues of problem gambling, and this will include a predictive modelling tool that analyses data to identify players at risk of problem gambling, a voluntary pre-commitment system where players can elect to restrict the amount of time that they play or the amount that they spend, doubling the number of host responsibility specialists to deliver 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. People actually there to make sure that those using the service of Sky City can actually feel safe, that someone is there to support their decision if they choose that they've actually had enough. So problem gambling will be an ongoing issue for communities. It is an addiction. No number of machines, pokies or tables will be too few or too many for the problem gamblers to deal with. The measures are in place to support recovery and help New Zealanders in those situations where they may be in trouble. I say, Mr. Speaker, because Sky City is not the only gambling venue, and gambling is in fact a nationwide issue and concern, and it's not just one company's issue that we should be talking about. Sir, simply put, this bill by the New Zealand First members' recommendation to abolish these innovative public-private partnership is nothing more than just a knee-jerk reaction of a company with diversified interests wanting to actually move into areas where New Zealand as a whole can actually benefit, that our nation can actually benefit. I expect, Mr. Speaker, we will hear more about lots of conferences being booked in New Zealand as a result of that. Maybe it's even within New Zealand. Maybe people living in the South Island may like to come up to Auckland to possibly book a convention, sir. Let's not step back into the past, put New Zealand into debt. Let's get New Zealand on the right path and ensure we have a par excellence convention centre in the nation's largest city, sir.
Point of order, David Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, during the previous